the Arch Gaming Network is proud to bring you this board game review. Now here's your host, Sean Smith.
Hello and thank you for stopping by. Today we're taking a look at the game Paradox by... No. I'm sorry. Today we're taking a look at the game Paradox by... You know, I may need to fire my graphics person. Oh wait, that's me. Today we're taking a look at Paradox by Brian Suri and published by Split Second Games. Now in Paradox, it's a space-themed game, and there is a disturbance called a quake that is going around and fracturing planets. No! This is because humans have developed time travel, but they've abused it, and now they've created this quake. You're going to take the role of a scientist trying to repair the planets in various timelines. And as you do that, though, more planets are going to become fractured, so you're going to have to work even harder to try and save those planets. Now, this is a game for 2 to 4 players, and it features some card drafting and also set collection, but the main mechanic is a very unique, kind of a Bejeweled-like, Candy Crush-like matrix in which to gather the resources necessary to save the planets. You're going to be using a 5x5 grid called a matrix with different colors where you're going to be moving pieces around to try and match either 4 or 5 in a row. So why don't we take a look at the setup and then an overview, and I'll give you my thoughts on the other side. Okay, to set up for Paradox, what you're going to do is place the multiverse board in the center of the table, and then you have these world discs. Now, these world discs, you're just going to place them in their circle at random. Just shuffle them and place them out on the board. You then have a start marker, put that on turn 1. The game lasts 12 rounds. And then you have the quake marker, which is going to start on the spot that has the orange border on its circle. You have these blue shield tokens. Just put them in a pile within easy reach of all the players. We're going to set up for a 4-player game. Then you have the alliance flags, one of each color of the energy discs that come with the game, and just place those near the board. You have some research goals. You have a deck of those. You have all kinds of different ways to get extra points in the game. You're going to shuffle those and just at random put 3 of them in these 3 spots here. The rest of the research goals can go back into the box. You have timeline cards as well. These have all the different cards that represent the planets. There are also some cards in here called Nexus, and you're also going to, if you want, choose a scenario. We're going to add the breakthrough scenario cards, so we'll put those into the deck. So you're going to shuffle that deck, and then at the wormhole you have a stable wormhole and an unstable wormhole. You're just going to take 4 of these cards, fill in the stable wormhole, and then take 4 and fill in the unstable wormhole. You can now place the rest of the cards next to the board. Next, you're going to fill your anomaly. In the center of the board is a spot. There are, on these energy tokens, there are 3 different types of symbols in the game: the circle, triangle, and the X or the plus. And so you're just going to reach into this bag that has all of the different tokens in it. You'll pull 3 out, one for each symbol and just place them in the center of the board. Since we're playing a 4-player game, we're going to use all of the energy discs, but if you're playing with less than 4, the instructions tell you how to set up the bag. All right, each player is going to get one of these player mats, and then they will, one at a time, take the bag of tokens. They'll reach in and starting at the bottom left and working their way from left to right, they will continue to fill up their matrix until they have a 5x5 grid. Decide who's going to be the start player. They're going to get the Chief Scientist marker, and you are now ready to play. All right, let's go ahead and do an overview of each of the components in the game so I can give you an explanation of what they are, what they do, and then we can go into a round and see how a person's turn would work. Now in the center you'll have the multiverse board. This has a space for all of the planets. There are planets A through O. Now the object of the game is to collect the most points, and the way that you do that is to collect sets of planets. Like this is planet E, and we'll talk about the cards here in a minute, but when you're collecting sets of planets, it's important to note that you won't get any points for the sets that you collect if at the end of the game your planet has been fractured. So when a planet gets fractured, it's turned over. The way that's going to happen is that this quake is going to be moving along the outer parts here clockwise, and when it lands on a planet, it will fracture that particular planet. Now planets can be repaired and they can be shielded, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. The center of the board contains the anomaly. Now this is helpful for your matrix. In the game you're going to be using your matrix to try and get rows of colors, and when you do that you're going to get resources to complete the planets that you're trying to save and collect. The anomaly allows you to switch tokens from your matrix with one of these tokens in the middle. On this side of the board you have your research goals. Now research goals are extra ways to get points at the end of the game. They're not win conditions necessarily, but they will give you very vital bonus points if you can complete them. For example, this particular card is an alien minerals card, and you're going to be trying to collect cards that will have this symbol on them. For example, on this particular card, it has that symbol on it. If you collect this and that planet is not fractured at the end of the game, you're going to collect bonus points based on the conditions in the research goals. So for this particular one, it says for every one of these alien mineral cards that you completed, you'll get 1 victory point. This slot says you have to have 2 of whatever that research goal is to get 3 victory points. And the third slot is you have to have a set of 3 of those research goals to obtain 6 victory points. Now there's a spot here for some trigger discs. In the scenario that we're playing, we are not using trigger discs, so we won't put them out, but if we did, we'd put those right there. And then you have the wormhole. You have a stable wormhole and an unstable wormhole. So how does the wormhole work? Well, for every turn, players are going to get to take one of the cards from either the unstable or the stable wormhole. One at a time, starting with the player to the left of the Chief Scientist. They will just take one of the cards, and then they will place this onto their player mat, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Then the next player can do the same. The third player could choose one, and now we're back to the Chief Scientist. Now the Chief Scientist does get to do something a little different. Because they get to go last, they have a choice. They will get to take a look at the top 4 cards, and you'll give them these cards before any players take a chance so that they can take a look at them, and then they're able to decide, you know, if they want to choose one of these cards from here, or they could choose 2 of the cards remaining from the wormhole. Whether they decide to choose any cards from this deck or not whatever they have chosen, they will still take all of the cards and put them back on the top of the deck so that the chief scientist has an idea of the cards that will be coming out next round. Now this game is played in 3 phases: a wormhole phase, a matrix phase, and a cleanup phase. Now the wormhole phase is when you are refilling this wormhole with these cards. But during the cleanup phase, anything that was in this unstable wormhole will go away and go into a discard pile. And then all of those cards that were in the stable wormhole will move down, and then starting with the top cards here, you will refill the wormholes. Along the top here you have some alliance flags. Now if you have these at the end of the game, each one is worth 1 point. We'll talk about how you can obtain these in just a moment. Okay, let's talk about the player board here that everybody has. Now this board is used that when you take cards from the wormhole, you're going to place them in the appropriate spot. You have a past, a present, a future, and a danger spot.
Don't be scared.
You also have a spot for a discard pile for some resources, and then it's also going to tell you what happens, kind of a cheat sheet of when you advance the Quake for each scored timeline. It's going to tell you how many you're going to move that orange disc, this one here, whenever you complete a planet. Now let's say as the chief scientist on my turn, I had picked a couple of cards here, and we're going to go over the anatomy of these cards in just a moment. But on here this says it is a future card, so I have to place that in the future slot. This card is a past, so I will place that in the past slot. At the end of my turn, all of these cards are going to slide to the right. And if any card ever falls off the danger zone, that card is lost and will go to a discard pile. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the matrix. The matrix is the way that you're able to save these planets. Now the planets will have symbols on them that let you know the necessary resources it takes to save them. For example, this one says you will need 1 red resource to save it. The way that you get resources is to use your matrix. During the matrix phase of your turn, you will have 2 opportunities to swap energy tokens based on whether or not they have the same shape on them. What you're trying to do is to get 4 colors or 5 colors in a row. So for example, maybe I would swap this circle with this circle, and that would give me 4 in a row. Now I would immediately remove that, but let's say I wanted to get 5 in a row, and we'll talk about why you would rather do that in a minute. What you could do is swap this with this as one of your actions during your matrix phase, and then swap this and this to make 5 in a row. It is important to note the order in which you do those swaps, because as soon as you make 4 in a row or 5 in a row, you stop, remove those resources from the board before you move on to your next action or your end of turn. So in our example, since I made 5 in a row, I would remove these from the matrix. Whenever you get 4 tokens in a turn, you get to keep 1 of the resources. All right, you get to keep 1 of them and assign them to a card out in your timeline. So my E-planet here needs 1 red, so I would assign it to that. The rest of the tokens will go into the discard pile. Now I still have 1 left, because when you do 5, you get to keep 2 resources. Well, my past planet requires 3 tokens of any color. So I will assign 1 there. You have to assign them on your turn. If you don't, you lose them. Now because I have saved this planet, I can take this card and just turn it over and put it into a pile for myself, knowing that at the end of the game I have collected 1 E planet Of course, E cannot be fractured like this at the end of the game, so I'll have to watch that. When I've completed it, the cheat sheet up here at the top says that when you complete a future planet, the quake moves 1 space. So in this case, it would go to B, and then B would be fractured. That's no good because I'm also trying to collect B planets. Now the red that I took off the planet that I just saved will go into the discard pile. Whenever you have completed a row or a column in your matrix, and keep in mind, it has to be 4 in a row in a column, or, I'm sorry, in a column or a row. You cannot do it diagonally. All of the tokens will fall down, straight down, and then you will use the bag, and again, starting from bottom to top and left to right, you'll refill your matrix. Now it is important to note, when the tokens fall down, if they were to make 4 in a row, or if you refill and it were to make 4 or 5 in a row, you do not get to automatically take those. You have to have an action left to be able to take them. Since I already used my 2 actions, I am not able to take this, and I'll have to wait until my next turn. All right, now that it's the end of my turn, I would move all of my cards 1 space to the right. I would take any of the leftover tokens that I had, put them back in the bag, and then it'd be the next player's turn, unless, of course, the Chief Scientist was the last player to go, in which that round is then over. Okay, let's talk about the cards that you can play with. Now, this will not be all of the cards in the game. There are multiple scenario cards that you can play with, and we are only playing with the breakthrough scenario here. It's important to note that each of these cards, each of the planet cards, have only 4 cards. They have a past, a present, a future, and a nexus. Now, depending on how many of that particular set that you collect will determine how many points you get at the end of the game, again, provided that the planet has not been fractured. If you collect 1 card from a planet, you'll get 1 victory point at the end of the game. If you've collected 2, let's say you collected 2 of the E's, you'll get 3 points. If you've collected 3 of them, you'll get 6 points, and if you've collected all 4 of them, you will get 10 points. In the middle top of the card, it tells you what planet it is, and of course, what time it is in history. So this is Elysium's past. You then also have a present and a future. In the upper left-hand corner is how many resources it will take to save that planet. All past planets need 3 resources to save it, but those 3 resources can be any of the colors from your matrix. For present planets, you will always need to collect 2 resources of the same color, be it blue, yellow, or red. You'll never see any white or black resources necessary to take care of a present, or for that matter, a future planet. Future planets will always take 1 resource. In the upper right-hand corner is the technology symbol, or kind of the research symbols for that particular planet. Some of the cards in your research goals, for example, here we have military technology, and another one was the alien minerals cards. You're trying to collect sets of those too as research goals. So in the upper right-hand corner, this one is an alien mineral, this one is a military technology, this also is a military technology. For completed sets of those, you'll get victory points depending on the research goal requirements. Now, the 4th type of planet card is the Nexus cards, and these cards work a little different. You don't need resources to clear this, but when you do take one of these and put them into your timeline, and these will always go into the past on your player mat, you will need to take a shield token. Okay, and you will be placing this shield token on the spot in your matrix as outlined here. That particular resource token cannot be moved during your turn. The way that you complete Nexus cards is to get 4 or 5 from that particular column or row to be able to clear that Nexus. And until you do, again, that token cannot be moved. In the breakthrough scenario, if you pick up this card, it immediately goes to the danger slot because you have to use it on that turn. This allows you to either take a third action, matrix action, or to be able to basically discard an entire row or column from your matrix. And the last card that we're playing with is the Nebula card, and the Nebula card is played onto the center of the multiverse board. It will cover up the anomaly, and no one will be able to use the anomaly during that turn. Once everyone has had a turn, that round is over, the Nebula card is discarded. Okay, so we've talked about the planets. Quite a few times I've mentioned that the way that you can score points for sets of planets that you have collected during the game is to make sure that at the end of the game the planet is not fractured. Like I said, right here we have B that is currently fractured. The way that you can repair a planet or shield a planet is to use either the white or black tokens. Let's say it is our turn again, and we still had this same scenario where we had the 5 in a row. Well, I can use one matrix action to immediately take these 5 tokens. I discard 3 of them, but I get to keep 2 of them. Now, whether it's black or white, what you can do with them, one, you can assign them to past cards. So I could put one here, I could put both there, and finish off that card. But I don't think I'm going to do that. I think what I'll do instead is use one of the black tokens to repair that planet. And then with the second black token, I am going to put a shield. Now I could put a shield on any planet I want, but earlier I had collected the letter E, so I think I'm going to shield the E. Now if the Quake lands on that, it will break the shield, but not the planet. Okay, let's say it's later in the game, and I have this blue, or this present planet that requires 2 blue resources. Now, it's my turn to take my 2 matrix actions, and I think what I'm going to do is I am going to swap these 2 here. That's going to give me 2 rows of 4 on one turn. Now, I can take the whites, and then I can take these yellows. I will discard all but 1 of each. That's going to leave me a white and a yellow card. Now, token. Now, what I could do is take the white, and I could shield or repair a planet if I wanted to. The yellow one, however, I don't have a yellow planet to put it on. I can't put it here. I can't put it anywhere. So what can I do? Well, at any time, if you have tokens that you cannot use, if it is possible, or if they're out there, you're able to take the alliance tokens. So I could take the yellow alliance, or the white alliance, and the yellow alliance, and then I can save those either as victory points at the end of the game, or I can use them at any time on my turn to be able to use the action as if it were a yellow or white energy token. Now, what if somebody else already had the yellow alliance in front of them? Well, you could spend that yellow resource to remove that alliance token from them and put it back into the general supply for anyone to grab. All right, now that we have all of that information on the components and how they work, let's just really quickly go through how a round would work. First, you have the wormhole phase. You're going to fill in the wormholes with 4 cards each. The chief scientist is going to take the top 4 cards. Again, we're doing a 4-player game. They are going to look at this while everybody else is deciding what they want to do. The player to the left of the chief scientist is going to take a card and place it into their timeline on their player mat. The third player will do the same. And then the chief scientist then will get to decide to either take 2 cards from here or one card from this hand, and they have decided to take the breakthrough and that card. Now, starting with the player to the left of the Chief Scientist, they will get to take 2 matrix actions, and they will get to swap either with the anomaly in the middle or on their own matrix. They can swap 2 of the same shape, trying to get the 4 or 5 in a row. When they do, they can allocate those resources to planets, or they can take the alliance tokens. If they've collected a white or a black resource, they can repair or shield a planet. Once they've taken their 2 matrix actions, or a third one if they had the breakthrough, they'll move all their cards 1 space to the right. Then the next player will go, the next player, until the Chief Scientist has taken his turn. You'll now move on to the cleanup phase. You're going to move the turn marker 1. Anything that was in the unstable wormhole will go away and go into a discard pile. The stable will move to the unstable. You're going to start filling with your stable. We have a nebula, so the nebula will go there. The Chief Scientist card will then move to the player to the left, and you'll start a new round. At the end of the game, what you're going to do is all of the different cards that you have completed will count. Anything on your timeline that you didn't complete won't count negative. And what you're going to do is try to collect sets of cards. Now, the first thing you're going to do is look at your cards, and any planets that are out here that are fractured, you're just going to remove those from your hand. Any cards that are now left over, you will tally those up, put them in sets and tally those up to get the victory points for those. You'll then also take any of the, if you have any alliance tokens, you're going to get 1 victory point for those. And then for any of these that you've completed, you'll get victory points for those. Whoever has the most points is the winner of the game. Okay, so that's Paradox. Would you stop it? Now, this is a really cool game. The components to the game are well done. We have the artwork on the various cards and even the board, very nicely done. The cards really have cool artwork on them. The board is nice. Everything is easy to read. The cardboard pieces are good. You know, nothing special, but they do a good job. You have and then you have kind of those bluish see-through shield tokens that are well done. The colors that you have on like the energy tokens are good and they're easy to read. Now, even though the game is not difficult to play, it is a little difficult to teach. And the reason I think that is because all the different components that are going on, whether it's the multiverse board or the wormhole cards or the scenario cards, and then you have that matrix, you know, they are so tightly integrated throughout all of the different mechanics in the game that it's hard to explain one thing without somebody going, okay, well, how do you, okay, I got to collect resources, how do I do that? And we haven't talked about, you know, the matrix, and then completing cards are going to fracture planets, but we haven't talked about the planets yet. So you're never, when you're teaching it, you're never really quite sure where to start. And so hopefully this video will help you if you are trying to teach this game. But like I said, the game's not difficult to play. It just, you know, maybe takes a little bit, maybe a round or two before people will wrap their head around how the game plays, and then it's kind of smooth sailing from there. One thing I really like about this game is that you are always in this game, even when it's not your turn. Because when it's not your turn, you know, you're looking at your matrix and you are trying to think ahead of what kind of moves you can make to set you up best for maybe the timeline cards that you have, and then you're concentrating on the wormhole and seeing what is going to disappear and maybe what you could take next round. And then maybe you're looking at your opponent's matrix and, you know, maybe you're seeing a move that they're not seeing and you're like, ooh, you know, I hope they don't see it. But then on top of that, you're kind of paying attention to the colors that they have in their matrix, because maybe they have a lot of blue and you need blue, so you know there's less of those in the bags. The strategy is constantly being readjusted in this game. Now, it scales well. It plays 2 to 4. There's just a little variation in the rules for 2 players, but nothing major. And, you know, I've played it with 2 and 4, and it plays well in either scenario. The game says it takes about 60 minutes to 120 minutes, and that's probably about right, especially if you're playing with someone for the first time, or playing with someone who likes to take a little extra time looking at that matrix and trying to figure out exactly what they need to do to get the resources that they need. But, you know, with 4 players who have played it through, you could probably get through this in an hour and a half easily. I like that there are different scenarios in the game that can add to that replayability. We just played with the breakthrough scenario, but there are several others that are included in the game that really mix up the game very well. Now, the one thing that I really love about this game, which makes it so much more different than any other game that I've played, is that matrix mechanic. Having to work that matrix to line up those tokens to collect the resources that you need is so unique, so different, that it just makes the game so enjoyable. There is a little bit of luck when you're drawing them out of the bag, because, you know, a color or a shape that you desperately need maybe doesn't come out. But you know what? That's just the way the nature of some games are, with the randomness. The game allows you to have to readjust your strategies and maybe the cards that you're collecting as you take a look at your matrix and see what colors you have and what you can do with them. It's just such an interesting mechanic that I think a lot of people are going to find very enjoyable. So Paradox is a very smart game, and it's going to keep you engaged throughout, constantly thinking, constantly readjusting your strategies. So for me, I give this game a 9. Now, if you've enjoyed this review, please take a moment, hit the like button below. Also, subscribe to our channel, check out our other great videos, and once again, I thank you for stopping by.
Thank you for visiting the Arch Gaming Network. For more great content, check us out at archgamingnetwork.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook.